Hello to you, I'm Lieutenant Main Anchor Rondell Joseph with RTA 25. Tonight's special segment is one of the stories we covered a while back, but tonight we go into the backstory with an interview I conducted with Mark Giangreco. He talks about how he wanted to be in this business, his friendships with Ron Majors and the late Jerry Taft, and many more. This is an interview that is unedited, and I call it Giangreco's Backstory. Fine, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm interviewing Mark Giangreco.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, I've had so many, I've always thought about interviewing Mark Giangreco, and it's actually happening. It's great to have you on air with me since I'm interviewing you for my special segment, Giangreco's Backstory. Of course, I grew up watching you originally from Chicago. Watched you since John Drury and Diane Burns on ABC 7 News at 10.
Wow. Yeah, those were the good old days. I got to tell you, that when local news really mattered, and it was viciously competitive, and it was a lot of fun. Those were awesome days.
And you, Ron, and Kathy, you inspired me and made me believe and fight back and pushed me into this business. And without you guys, I don't think I would have been able to make it long.
So, come on, you would have done it on your own. You would have done it.
Well, tell me, Mark, what inspired you to go into sports broadcasting? Tell me.
Well, I think like a lot of other people, I played sports, I was obsessed with it growing up, but I also had this incredible love of music and radio. And I really just kind of fell into sports and fell into television because all I ever really wanted to be was like a top 40 rock DJ. I used to listen to all the radio stations in Chicago when I was growing up in Buffalo, New York. When I was about 8, 10 years old, I'd listen to my little transistor radio in bed at night when you could pick up all the signals from all the radio stations across the nation. And I was obsessed with music radio, WLS, Super CFL. I loved Larry Lujak and Dick Biondi and John Records Landecker. And CKLW was probably the greatest station in the country in Detroit. So my whole thing was radio and music, and I just kind of blended it with sports. And when I had the opportunity to do weekend television in Dayton, I jumped at
it. And rumor has it you were at one point were a weekend anchor before coming to Chicago. Is that true?
Right. I was doing weekend sports at WDTN Channel 2 in Dayton, Ohio. I went to the University of Dayton. And while I was in college from my sophomore through my senior year, I got a job doing the news and sports on the top 40 rock station in Dayton, and then just auditioned to also do the weekend TV sports. So I got my start there. Then I went to Louisville, Kentucky for my first full-time Monday through Friday sports anchoring job. Was there for about 4 years, and then came to Chicago for my dream job at NBC in 1982. Jumped over to ABC in 1994.
So, of course, you had been over at NBC5 in 1982. At the time, Ron Majors, Linda Yu, and Jerry Taft were already there. How is it that you guys actually grew close? Please, let me in on that.
Well, you know what? There's either chemistry or there isn't, and it was just absolutely natural, and I think that showed on the air. Rondell, you can't force it. You can't fake it. You have to be yourself on the air. And Ron Majors is still one of my best friends to this day. He's my big brother, my mentor. Linda, you and I stay in touch. Jerry Taft, God rest his soul, was one of my great, great friends. And my goal every day was to make him laugh so hard that he couldn't finish the weather.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so those kind of things they happen organically, Yeah. And that's why we had such a great anchor team, because everybody was on the same team. Everybody had one another's backs. Everybody trusted one another. Everybody was secure and confident. Nobody was offended by anything. And of course, those were other times.
Yeah, and when Ron actually quit NBC5 in 97, what was the reaction of people when they found out he was jumping over to ABC7 the following year after the retirement of Floyd Calvert?
Right. Well, I actually went to ABC in 1994. And, back then, all the local television people were quote unquote celebrities. Los Angeles had all the movie stars, but back then, I was never into that thing, but we were kind of like the local celebrity. So when I jumped from 5 to 7, that was front page news on the Tribune and the Sun Times. And then I bumped Tim Weigel. He went to Channel 2, who bumped Corey McFerrin. He went to Fox. And then Corey bumped Darren Horton, who went to St. Louis. So it was kind of weird after I made the move and we had that domino effect. We just all moved down a seat at press row, at the Bulls game and so forth. It was kind of weird, but it all worked out.
And here's, like, you've been around for a lot of good stuff at ABC7, like the debut of the State Street Studio 15 years ago. I had seen the video of your post rule of etiquette. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't stop laughing when I watched it. We don't want any of this or this. Let me in on your comical ways. It brought a lot of entertainment to late night news because you and Jerry were the top two that could not get me to stop laughing, okay? Whether Jerry had clicker problems and you would pick at him with it regarding the sports clicker working and whatnot, tell me.
Well, again, that stuff all came naturally. We didn't really plan stuff. Jerry would just look at me and he would just crack up because we were always fooling around off camera. You cut out there for a minute. Were you referring to when I had to shave my chest on the radio station on ESPN? I had a bet with Nick Friedel, who was the Bulls writer at the time, that Dayton would beat Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. Well, of course, Syracuse beat my Flyers badly, so I had to shave an S into my chest for Syracuse. All those kind of bits, why not? Just have fun with it. I never took it seriously. I would always like people to think that I worked really hard trying to make it look easy. And unless you actually had to report on something very serious, a death or whatever, it was not life and death. Sports was fun. It was supposed to be a break from the rest of the newscast. So once again, just trying to be myself and having a good time with it.
My friends, I always consider, we have a Mark Giangreco, Jerry Tapp type of friendship. I'm the Mark of the situation. I'm the one causing the trouble. My friend is the Jerry. He's just going with it. I don't know how I do it. I don't know how I maintain to keep that together. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm about to have one of those Mark Giangreco days. Get ready. And
that's how you express your friendship and your love for people, by taking shots at them. And you can do that with your real friends. Some people who are offended by that, well, obviously they're not your friends.
Yeah, and without you and Jerry, Ron, and Kathy on the 10 o'clock back when Diane Burns left in 2003, I don't think without that, it would have been, without your guys' chemistry, I felt everybody would have just turned over to someone else, like Warner and Allison on NBC5. It made Warner's soul continue to rest as well. I know you and Warner had worked over at NBC5 before you jumped over to ABC7. So, you've also been around the big things at not ABC7, but NBC5, like the debut of the NBC Tower in '89.
Yeah, that was exciting. We were in the Merchandise Mart, which was kind of a cool building in and of itself. But to move the NBC Tower, it was built to look like Rockefeller Center in New York. Yeah. And it was really cool. 1989, I remember the very first newscast, we were all in tuxedos. It was Carol Marine, Ron Majors, John Coleman, and myself. And I remember we had a great story where we were the first station to have those robotic cameras that ran on hydraulics, and they were operated by the director up in the control room. And at the last minute, they decided instead of building a news set in the studio, they were going to build a news set in the newsroom. Yeah. Well, they didn't realize that the floors could not support 1,000-pound cameras. And right in the middle of a newscast, the hydraulics gave out on the camera and the base of the camera sank into the ground. And then the hydraulics gave out and the camera kept going down. And of course, Ron Majors, being the pro that he is, he just followed the camera all the way down and just kept reading that story, which was awesome. And then, when I got the offer to jump to ABC, I didn't want to go because I didn't want to leave Ron and Carol. And Channel 7 was always the enemy, for years.
Because at the time, in 85, they had already, not 85, but 86, they had jumped from third place to first.
Right. And we were always a real close second, and we beat them a few times at 10 o'clock when I was at 5. So they made me this outrageous offer to come over, and I went to Ron and I said, gosh, I don't want to leave you guys. He goes, well, what did they offer you? And I told him, he goes, you got to go. We're still going to be friends. You got to go. So, and then Ron came over 4 years later. And so it all worked out. Jerry actually jumped to ABC 2 years after I got there.
And I know both he and Linda, you had jumped over to ABC 7 together. Yeah, that was like 84.
Well, 94.
84, yeah, was they.
Jerry Taft had already left in
84 to go.
Yeah,
to
that's when. Yeah, because Linda, you had already been.
Ron came over in 98.
Yeah, and Linda, you had already been named anchor for the 4 o'clock with the late Joel Daly back in April of 84.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I know at the time, Joel was still anchoring the 10 o'clock before John Drury had jumped back to ABC 7 from WGN.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you are the historian.
Yes.
Out of town.
I've been to pretty much every station in the city. I've been over to Fox 32, thanks to Sylvia Press. CBS 2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob Johnson, of course, who worked at CBS 2. Then jumped over to NBC 5 the following year for a tour, thanks to Natalie Martinez. ABC 7 back in 19. This was during the daytime, though. And WGN, of course, on a weekend. So I pretty much got myself ahead of the game. And I've seen many stories, and I've read many newscasts and watched you guys. And I can see that for a fact, you guys have got it together over the years. Ron, Kathy, Jerry, and Mark, you're like, oh my gosh. You guys are all right, but fun.
Yeah, it was instant chemistry because we'd known each other. Like, you even know your competitors. You strike up friendships with people at other stations. And once again, you have to work on it. You have to get used to it. But it was so natural that it really wasn't that much work. We just went and did our thing. And it all, you don't have to sit there and you say this, I'll say this, script things out, try to, practice, try to rehearse. None of that stuff ever happened.
And I also, I know everybody still has the rival moments with the WGN Morning News, especially how they come after you and Ron. I know, are you and Larry still going to have that boxing competition?
I don't think so. Since I saw a video of him actually boxing, I am going to back off. He looks like he's tough. No, I have to tell you, the WGN Morning News, that'd be perfect for my situation. They get away with murder. They make fun of one another. Once again, they're a team. They're all friends. They're all secure, confident, smart, witty. They can take shots at one another without anybody being offended.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a tremendous, tremendous newscast, and that's why they're number one in the morning. I mean, most of the people are from Chicago. Robin's the neighborhood girl you grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
They are excellent. They're the best in this market, no question.
And I did watch for a couple of years growing up, but I kind of stopped because I was like, I'm not sure if I want to still watch anymore. But I only watch probably for the traffic reports and stuff like that.
Well, hey, listen, you could do a lot worse. I mean, people in Chicago are lucky to have NBC5, WGN Channel 9, Fox 32, TT2, Channel 11, Channel 2, CBS 2. I mean, everybody does a quality job.
And I know when the passing of John Drury hit, I know it took a domino effect on a lot of the people at ABC 7 because Ron got his seat through John. And basically, when Ron came over in 98, he basically got Alan's 5 o'clock seat.
Well, Alan was 21 years old when he started at Channel 7.
I know.
He was doing the weather, and that man is an absolute machine. He is an anchor machine. He is so good. He is so smooth. He's so consistent. He and Ron are a lot alike. Ron could ad-lib an hour-long newscast and often did on election night, breaking news, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever. So I had the opportunity to work with the absolute best. So people leave. Unfortunately, people pass away. Everybody moves up a notch or moves over. It's a very tough job for a general manager and a news director to mix and match anchor teams. You want to make sure you have the right ethnic mix for your city. You want to make sure that people are going to have some kind of chemistry. So there's an art to putting an anchor team together. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I always because I grew up with ABC 7, of course, the originals, Jose and Judy in the morning, Linda and Sylvia at 11, Alan and Linda and Sylvia at 4, Ron at 5 and 10, Alan and Kathy at 6. And of course, it was weird when Sylvia had left, because I was like, oh my gosh. It took a hit, because I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to still watch, but I continued to watch even after Ron and Kathy left. I kept my loyalty because you and Jerry, you guys, oh my gosh, the fun.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm giving you permission not to watch anymore. None of us are there anymore. You don't have to watch.
My Circle 7 lapel stored in storage now. But yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Do you have any advice for future sportscasters who would want to go into the business, though?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a much different world now. Obviously, everybody knows the challenges of local television news. It's a really struggling media platform. Everybody gets their information from their phone, basically.
Yeah.
So by the time you hit air, if you're working for a local television station, by the time you hit air, everybody's seen the highlights, everybody's read the story, everybody's heard the sound bites, everybody knows what's going on. So you need to advance the story. You need to ask the question, what's next? You need to have fun with it, fool around with it, give an opinion. You've got to add something to the news that's already been out there for hours and hours. So you have to be creative. My advice to people trying to get in the business now, forget broadcasting. You need to get a job with the league, a team, a university. They all have their own media departments, and work for them, work for the other side. You can be very creative. You can produce a lot of features. You have a lot of leeway. You have extra time. You're not constrained. You're not confined to 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes or whatever. My advice would be, obviously, you need to present yourself and practice and be able to sit in front of a camera the way you are, and be able to read a teleprompter, be able to write concisely, to be able to ad lib and so forth. You're going to need those skills no matter what platform you're on. But I would suggest that you work for a website, a league, a team, a university, have a podcast, YouTube channel, something like that, because conventional basic broadcasting is really fading.
Yeah, and I started to see that as the years went by, and I'm still trying to keep myself in. And Mark, you've brought a lot of life to people, because you're such a witty person, you're comical, you're funny. Even though, as Kathy said, if it doesn't get you in trouble, it gets everyone in trouble.
Yeah, why not? If I'm going to wreck something, I'm going to wreck it for everybody. But I think everybody's on guard, and everybody has to be ready to throw it right back at you.
Yes.
I think if someone is not witty enough to go toe-to-toe with you, or is easily offended, well, then there's going to be a problem.
And of course, I come from Chicago, the South Side, and growing up with many sports figures like you and Corey McFerrin before he became anchor at Fox Chicago, it changes. And I know there's a saying that nothing changes except what has to. And you've done a good job over the last nearly 4 decades in Chicago, and you've been in the business now nearly 5 decades, I'm assuming?
40 years in Chicago and about 10 years elsewhere, so.
Yeah, about nearly 5 decades. Ooh.
I know, I'm old, man. I'm old.
Don't worry, I knew Brian Majors was in the business 51 years, okay? But I'm gonna tell you, Ron did inspire me to go into journalism, and I turned out to be like him in a few different ways. I don't take BS, and I really try to get the story, get to the truth, and bring it out. And there was more to it in the business than there should be, but it is what it is.
It is what it is right. And I have to tell you, I didn't go out on my terms or my timetable, but I'm really glad to be out right now. I really am. I'm enjoying retirement. I'm really flattered. I've had some really nice offers and inquiries, and I'm mulling things over, and we'll see what happens. But at this point, I can do it, everything, anything, or nothing.
Yeah. And
I'm really lucky.
shoot, you're pushing near 7-0, but you still got it.
Well, I like to think so,
Yeah.
Like to get back in shape, like to travel the world. And I can put sports aside. I have other interests. I'm into classic muscle cars. Like I said, I'm into music, going back to art school. I've been designing logos for teams and leagues and websites and so forth. So I've got a lot of other interests, and it's kind of nice to take a break. I mean, look at the sports situation in Chicago right now. Blackhawks out of the playoffs. Bulls, if they barely get in, they're one and done. I can't watch more than 2 innings of baseball anymore. I'm a baby boomer, but I have the attention span of a millennial because it's just baseball's too slow. The Cubs are dead. If the Sox do what they're supposed to do, nobody cares except half the city, which always bothered me. So this is a real tough time to be a Chicago sports fan. And, I don't need it right now. I really don't.
Yeah.
The Bears, of course, everybody's loving Ryan Pace all of a sudden because of the move he made in the draft to get Justin Fields. We'll see what happens. The Bears are more than capable of ruining that kid too,
Yeah.
I haven't really been watching my Chi-Town sports like I should because of how things have been going in the last year since the pandemic started, and
Right.
a lot of changes going around. But it's gonna be unexpected, so we'll just wait and see what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, the pendulum will swing back and forth.
Correct, and so forth. And, it's an ebb and flow, but I think people in Chicago are used to having losers, and they've grown used to
Yeah.
just have a sentimental connection to the team, no matter how good or bad it is. I mean, that's what a true sports fan is.
Yeah.
Mark, by the way, happy early birthday.
I got one coming up. Yeah, in about 10 days, I think, or 9 days. Man, you did your homework. Yeah, it's going to be the big 6'9", so that means you're in your 70th year. But again, I'm lucky to be super healthy and still got a lot of juice, still have a lot of energy left. It's just up to me whether I want to direct that energy toward media or just do something else completely different.
Yeah, and you've got this, so just let's see what it holds for you. And congrats on your stellar run in the business. Without you, I don't think we would see a lot of laughs today.
Well, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I enjoy being with you, and whatever I decide to do, I'll let you know first. How about that?
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. I've had the pleasure of interviewing you, and I cannot believe it.
All right, Rondell, my pleasure. Hey, the best of luck to you. I can already tell you got a lot of talent. You do your homework, and you're very determined, and you've got a lot of energy. So use it wisely.
Thank you so much, Mark.